Good morning, everybody. It's Ben Jones here with Baddorf and Bronson Coffee Roasters, hanging out in my coffee workshop. And today we're going to look at how you can do a pour over when you don't have all the gear. So, because coffee is my job, it's what I do day in and day out. It's also something that I really enjoy, just kind of as a hobby. It's how I started. I've collected over the years a lot of really fun toys and gear and things. Fancy grinders, really fancy pour over kettles. Whether it's the plug-in automated kind or something stovetop. I've got a lot of toys and tools, and honestly, if I was just a regular Joe, I probably wouldn't be investing the money in as much gear as I have. I would be much more thoughtful about it. But anyway, tools of the trade. Let's look at how we can do pour over coffee without all the gear. First thing I want to talk about though is if you to keep things really simple, some of the best and easiest ways to brew coffee without a lot of special gear are things like the French press, the clever dripper, and the AeroPress. All of those, you add your hot water into with the coffee grounds, you let them sit and steep, and then you filter it out. With that, the delivery of water is not as crucial. Once you start getting into things like the Chemex, the Kalita, the V60, or what we're going to do today is just a regular mug top Melita style pour over, where it matters how you deliver the water. We want to make sure we do that well. So to start, I have my Melita filter. Set the bee house aside, and we're going to go even more simple. And I'm going to pull out my Melita plastic cone, just because, as I said, we're going to keep it simple. We're going to do a basic. Also, I'm going to take my scale and just set that aside. So we're not going to play with that. What I am going to use, though, is my favorite diner mug. I know that is going to hold the coffee I like to drink. I used my kettle only to heat the water. If I was at home, I would heat it, or in the house, I would heat it in a tea kettle on the stovetop, or you can just boil it in a pot. And then I'm going to use a good old-fashioned Pyrex measuring cup. To start, the water in my heating kettle, I've heated it higher than I need it to go. And I'm doing that because I want to preheat the Pyrex. Right now, this is cold to the touch, and then it's warming up with this hot water. I'm going to use that to also preheat and rinse my filter, because I don't particularly enjoy the flavor of paper in my coffee, so I'm going to rinse that paper flavor out. It also helps to keep that filter seated where it needs to be. Alright, so next step while that drains is my diner mug is 10 ounces. You can go about this a couple ways. I can take a mug and I can fill it to the brim with hot water, put it back into here, and then pour from this. That would work. Or I can just measure out a little over 10 ounces of water into here. And I'm going to measure a little over 10 ounces because some of the water is going to get absorbed by the beans. So here's how that looks. I better turn it around to the imperial measurements. And we're just going to add 2/3 cup, 1 cup. I'm gonna go about 1 1/3 cups. That'll give me a little over 11, or a little over what I need. All right. Rinsed filter. I have my coffee. I went ahead and I did use my grinder to do that. Let's pretend I bought pre-ground coffee. 19 grams, about, you could say probably about 3.5 tablespoons if you were scooping, about 1.5 scoops if you're using a standard coffee scoop. And then from here, let me see, I'm going to make sure y'all can see this. I need to hurry because the longer I wait, the colder that water is going to get. All right. So to start, I just want to deliver a little water for the bloom, just enough to kind of disrupt the top, let it start to dribble down. All right. Pouring out of this spout gets a little clunky, a little clumsy. Some things you can do to control that: you can take a spoon and just hold it there, and that'll help to reduce, kind of soften the delivery. My favorite thing is just to take a bamboo skewer, the kind you might use if you were, skewering vegetables and putting that on the grill. And I just lay that across that spout, and then when I get a good pour, that'll run down. You maintain a little bit of momentum. That works. There we are. And we can also just continue to add a little bit like this. You have a lot of options. This is going to be a perfectly good cup of coffee. You don't need to have all the stuff. I do like the kettles because it makes things very easy to control your pour. I also really enjoy that part of the whole aspect. I like that aspect of the whole process. I kind of like the tools, I like the toys. They're fun. But don't sweat. If you don't have it, this is good. Now, here's the should-haves, right? Getting a smaller container, like if I'd used this little measuring cup that I have here, what I usually use as my decanter, that would give me a more compact dose of water, so I'd have a better thermal mass to keep that water warm. Because as this sits, it's going to be cooling off, and that's going to impact some of the extraction out of this coffee. So I have a smaller pour device, that'd be helpful. Also, I chipped this some time ago and had to I cleaned up the sharp edges, but it just doesn't pour quite the same. So, all right. Now, one of the things I love about these bee house style Melita filters or Melita brewers is that you have this little gap in the brewer, so I can see where my coffee level is inside the mug, and I can see there's plenty of room still in the cup. So I'm going to add more hot water from the stovetop into my Pyrex and put a little more in there. Then I can watch it. When you have that little open window, something that I really enjoy about these is you can see that, and you'll know, all right, I should take this off there now. It's going to be a little bit too full before it spills. If you happen to be using the Kalita Wave, which is a fantastic brewer, you can see where it sits across the mug. It's solid, so unless you're brewing into a clear cup, you won't know when you're going to overflow. So for those who use the Kalita Wave, you'll often see them pairing it with a scale, and that helps us really kind of control those measurements. Let's top this off. Don't let the bed go dry, but we don't need to keep the water really high. That rhymes, so it must be true. Anyway, the toys are fun. Don't necessarily need them. Something I did here is I ground my coffee for the bee house, which has 2 holes to drip through, and this one only has 1. So I'm getting a little bit slower of a drip, so we're gonna have a bit longer brew. It's gonna be a little bit over extracted, but I think we'll still be within range. And here, all right. So whenever I'm doing this, I keep another cup handy so that when I'm done, we can just transfer over. It's a good cup of coffee. Another thing to keep in mind, if you like to drink the darker roasts, if you really enjoy the smoky, pungency, that really rich flavor you get in a French roast or an Italian roast, or if you're drinking a blend that has dark roast components, you can get away with cooler water. So this method, where light thermal mass, faster cooling of the water, it's going to have less of an impact. If you're really into highly zippier, more acidic, lively medium roast coffees, like if you're pulling in some of our single origins, you may find that this loses a lot of heat, and you'll have to make some compensations, smaller grind size to get more extraction out of it, more stirring, so you might even add some agitation into your brewing. As temperature drops, we need to do something to kind of boost up the extraction in some of the lighter medium roast coffees. There we go. So, real simple, real straightforward. You don't need all the fun toys to make pour over coffee. If you have them, they are really fun. So what I used here, this was the first pour over I ever bought. I think I paid, it was less than $3 at a grocery store. And it was, compost that down. That's what I love about these, is the paper filter, you just pull it out, compost it, it's great. The plastic, these are, as long as they're food grade, we're happy. There's nothing wrong with it. Makes a great cup of coffee. So $3 for the brewer, another couple bucks for a box of filters to match. It's a great way to get started doing some pour overs. Pyrex measuring container works really well. And then again, take a bamboo skewer or a chopstick, and if you lay it right across the top into that spout, that will help to direct your pour. You can also then slide in and out and change the length, how far that water drips. You can do a lot of manipulations there. Similarly, if you just need to kind of diffuse the water as it flows in, just take a spoon, pour into the spoon, and that will let the water kind of softly drip down. Even with pour spouts, I do find that you can't pour too, you have to have some momentum. A slow pour is a little difficult with these. Difficult, but not impossible. So, great tips for if you are traveling, like we do that anymore. If you ever happen to find yourself without your toys, or if you haven't bought your toys yet, you can definitely do this. Or if you're just curious about what's it like to make one cup of coffee in the morning, you want to get into this ritual. This is my morning yoga. You can do yoga without a mat, but if you have a good quality yoga mat, that sure makes a difference. But it's still yoga, and it's still a cup of coffee. This is a perfectly good cup of coffee. I actually kind of like this, I might say a little bit better, because the temperature is a little bit lower and I could drink it right away. Maybe it's just because it's really cold in here. So fun note, this countertop in my shop, it's a sheet steel, so it gets cold when when it's chilly outside. It gets cold in here, so that's why I have the cloths on the counter. Help to insulate, and I don't want to be going ding ding ding. So there you go. That's the tour of the shop today. Thank you for joining us. Check out batdorfcoffee.com. We've got some fun coffees coming up soon, so stay tuned. About next week, this time next week, we should have a brand new coffee sitting out on the web store ready to go. Order yourself some coffee, drink good coffee at home. Thanks for joining.